Talk was fantastic. We kicked off with Billy Gilman and more with Rachel Nunes. But I'd like to welcome a familiar face, Robin Garceau with Robin Garceau Interiors. Thank you for joining us today.
Nice to see you again, Kate.
We've got a topic that is literally close to home.
Oh, really?
Literally close to home. If you're looking at new construction, when in the process do you incorporate the architect and the designer? Who comes first?
Well, it's funny. It's kind of the chicken or the egg conundrum, and I'm up against this all the time. Especially now, with this robust economy and everybody building, I'm involved in a number of new construction and custom design build projects. And so I thought, where I've touched on it a little bit here and there throughout our conversations over the past year, I felt as though I need to get more information out and possibly do a series of conversations.
This is a big issue.
It is a big issue, and there's a lot of moving parts to this issue. So that's why I decided to do this today. The very beginning, when you're just starting to think about building and new construction, what do? You always immediately think of an architect, but you never quite think of, let me hire an interior designer at the same time
to work
as
together.
your architect.
So you don't have a layout and then that's what you're going to be working with after that, is to incorporate it. Because you have a very interesting point as I'm looking at the notes here. One of the first questions to ask if you're thinking of living space, how many people can you fit in your living room? Because all of a sudden you're faced with a living room and you want multiple sofas and settees and chairs, and all of a sudden maybe you've run out of space. So one of the questions to ask is just that.
Right from the beginning, how many people you want to sit in your living room. You don't want to ask that question afterwards, after it's built. You want to do it when you're drawing up your floor plans. So, okay, your floor plan, unless you're handed a plan that's already done, if you have the opportunity to do it yourself and do a custom design build it to your needs and specifications. So that's really important. One of the projects I'm working on, it's kind of an aging in place project, and that's exactly what we did. We started out with a floor plan. The house itself, the exterior, wasn't even conceived of yet. We talked about, okay, let's do this floor plan. What do you want? You want open floor space. You want it, I know they wanted a dining room. They like their dining room, but we bumped it back and we did all kinds of things with it. So we conceptualized the exterior after we had the interior floor plan going. We knew, okay, you can fit your sofa, your love seat, you can fit 2 chairs, you can fit 12 people at your dining room table when you want to do that. So it is start from the beginning, and sometimes you need to have that interior designer right next to the architect when you're doing that.
And you raised an important point in your notes here as well, Robin. Knowing your own personal style, knowing if it's modern, knowing if it's traditional, knowing it's prairie, because that's going to play a lot into how the architecture plays out as well, because you're not going to be sticking a modern living room aesthetic into a more traditionally designed home.
Right. And when you're researching architects and you're researching interior designers, you're going to naturally gravitate toward your style. And what you want to do is look at their whole portfolio. So you may see something that you love that they did, but it's not quite what you were thinking about. So a seasoned professional can adapt to your style and your ideas, even though they have their own brand per se. That will come out in your style. So that's really where you have to begin with your styling, is when you're researching the architects and the interior designers.
And you raise a good point, because a lot of firms, especially architecture firms, have a lot of resources in-house, might have designers in-house, but you might have a designer you want to work with. So this is something to keep in mind as well. You don't have to go with who they have, do you?
No. And that's the other thing. If you're going to a custom design build, if you're working with an architect, and a lot of companies have in-house interior designers, this is a very long process. This is something that you really want to love when you're done. They may be great, but what you want to do is you want to make sure you see the designer's portfolio, not just the architect's portfolio, because you need to make sure they're on the same page as you. You need to make sure that they are seasoned in what they do. And if you don't feel as though, you know what, I love this architect, but I think I'd like to use my own interior designer, don't be afraid to speak up, because it is a long process. And if you're afraid to speak up now, believe me, later on it's going to be a nightmare. So speak up now when you have the chance.
How important is it, and this is a question kind of off the notes list here, to really have a rapport with both your architect and your designer, because again, this is your investment. This is where you'll be living.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You want to make sure that anybody that you work with actually listens and hears what you're saying. It's not about them, it's about you. And sometimes you can be speaking and they'll be like, okay, yes, let's go on to the next thing. But you have to make sure they're hearing you and understanding you. And again, the seasoned professional will take that in and guide you to a particular on a particular route if that's not really a good idea, explaining why it might not be a good idea. And if you can use it in a way, then yeah, let's do that. But this is how that will work. So don't be afraid to speak up. And yes, it is your home in what's coming up in the future.
And how important, finally, is it when you're budgeting the entire process? Most folks might think of a house as the brick and mortar, and they might have down on paper what they're looking to spend, but if they know they want to engage a designer and they know they're going to have a furniture budget, I mean, should that be really figured out at the outset?
Yes, absolutely. Understand what people charge, even if you are working with an interior design build firm. They are charging you for an interior designer. So make sure you understand those costs up front. So if you choose to use your own designer, you may say, you know what, okay, they charge this, but I know she's a little bit more, or he's a little bit more.
But it's who I want.
But that's who I want, and you don't know. That person may be able to work a little more quickly or in depth or whatever. And again, it's all in who you want to work with during the process. The other thing you want to make sure you do is read everything. If you get a spec book, make sure you understand all of your allowances, all of your expectations of what you're getting. Read every single line of what you're getting and understand your allowances. Okay, if you see in the spec sheet, okay, I got 16 bathroom sconces and for $50 a piece. And you go looking for a $50 sconce. Do it before you agree to the allowances. You go look for a $50 sconce, and trust me, they are not out there. They do not exist for something that you actually want to do.
It's like the unicorn,
It's like the unicorn. Try to find that $50 sconce.
No.
And it's not. So make sure before you sign on the dotted line that you look at your allowances and you understand exactly what you're getting, or else it's going to be a very frustrating proposition moving forward.
Well, as always, Robin, when you come in, you give folks things to think about when they're thinking of interior design. And as you said, this sort of interplay with architecture and design is something you really want to focus on. What can we anticipate in the future talking with you about in this area?
Well, next month what I think I'm going to do is, because we're still at the beginning stages, I want to talk about the floor plan a little bit more. Your bedrooms, your bathrooms, how it eats up the square footage, and that kind of thing. Does every bedroom actually need a bathroom? Do you want to do a Jack and Jill bathroom, that kind of thing? So that's really important, because that will help you move forward to the outside design as well. And the square footage, every 100 square feet is another number. So you really do have to think about it. So that's going to be next month.
Well, Robin Garceau, always giving us food for thought as it pertains to interior design. Appreciate, as always, you're taking the time to come into the studio.
Thank you, Kate.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're going to move away from the home to a little politics.